One of the most important aspects about the visuals on The Old Man is that it had to be grounded. It's really important that the show felt real. I call it kind of cinematic realism. It's not documentary and it's not Hollywood. It's something in between. It's stylized, but the stylization should never feel overt. The audience has to feel as though they're watching something that is as real as possible.
Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by cinematographer Jules O'Loughlin, whose work includes Miss Marvel, C, and more recently The Old Man for FX. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gordon. Good to be here.
I would love to know how you got, like, what attracted you to The Old Man show, like the show for FX?
Well, the thing that attracted me, there were two things. The first thing is the relationships. So the showrunners, Dan Schatz and John Steinberg, I've known them for about 11 years now. So I originally worked with them back in 2013 on the Starz TV series Black Sails in South Africa. And I did 2 seasons of Black Sails with them. And then subsequently, I worked with them on season 1 of C, the Jason Mamoa sci-fi series, which was also shot here, where I am at the moment in Vancouver. And at the moment, I'm doing Percy Jackson season 2. So I've done 2 seasons of Percy Jackson and the Olympians with them. So the relationship goes back some years. We love working with each other. We're like family. So that was the first thing, and the second thing was my first love as far as a cinematographer is drama, and this is a show that is just drama. It's thriller, but it's drama as well, and it's working with great actors, Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow, and I love the kind of the espionage aspect of it, the historical aspect of it, you know, with the Russian the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan '79. So I love that part of the world. I've traveled extensively in Western Asia through Iraq and Pakistan and Eastern Turkey. So I know that area pretty well. And yeah, so they're all the things that kind of attracted me to the show.
I sort of got into VFX by accident. I always had a technical interest in photography, and especially as it relates to movie making. There's something magical about the ability to believe something is happening when it isn't. So I went as a live action producer into a company called Bob Abel and Associates. Then I would have to, have a meeting about how do we do this effect that's in this commercial, and I never got the straight answer I was looking for. I have camera knowledge, so it's like, since it's kind of ambiguous, why don't I just grab a camera and we'll try it out. You have to figure out what tells the story and use every trick in the book to solve your problem. I am Rob Legato, and this is my course on visual effects.
Couple of things, because you mentioned John Lithgow and like such a great cast, and I saw in another interview you talked about just loving to watch them, like people do acting while you're behind the camera. And so I'm wondering, because they're very much like a lot of the actors in the show, interestingly enough, are also comedic actors or have come from comedy in some capacity. Did you find like, did you discover anything about their approach to it that was different, or what was it like sort of experiencing that with them?
Well, I think every actor you work with as a cinematographer brings something slightly different, because we're all human beings and we're all different. It's like every cinematographer brings slightly different approach, or a really different approach. But getting back to what you said about, I mean, one of my favorite things, I remember my son Max saying to me some years ago, Dad, don't you love doing all the car chases, the gun battles, and all the action? Why do you sometimes give that away to a second unit? And I said, listen, that stuff is fun, but the thing that really turns me on as a cinematographer and as a filmmaker is watching two great actors going at one another. You know, you're in a room, it's beautifully lit, and you've got just two actors in the frame, or one at a time, and they're doing their thing. There is nothing more powerful for me as a cinematographer than that experience, and being so connected to that experience and being so much a part of that experience. So as far as their technique is concerned, I mean, both actors come to set incredibly prepped. There are a lot of questions. You know, there's a show like The Old Man. You know, TV is invariably, it's a faster process than making a feature film, but we make this show sometimes like it's a feature film. You know, we don't get going very quickly in the morning. You know, there's a lot of questions from our actors. There's a lot of discussion with the director and with the runners, because these guys really want to know I guess the intricacies of their character, but also their character's journey. It's a really great and interesting process to be a part of. You know, first thing in the morning, you get to set, and you block the scene with the actors, and there's a bit of discussion, and then they go away to makeup and costume, and while, you know, I like the set. But with The Old Man, there's a lot of really in-depth discussion first thing in the morning. So, you know, it's rare that we get off to a galloping start. We're certainly galloping by the end of the day, but there's a lot of discussion first thing, and that's really great for me as a cinematographer. And I know for both John and Jeff, it's a really important part of their process.
And this is kind of an aside question, but I guess, like, you know, did you go to a lot of theater as a kid or something? Like, what attracted you to that specific aspect, or how did you sort of discover that?
As a filmmaker, cinematographer?
Well, like the idea of like having like focusing or being so interested in the drama and the actors. I'm wondering, like, you know, did you go to a lot of theater when you were younger, see them? Because seeing actors live is incredibly,
yeah,
you know,
I actually
moving.
I went to quite a bit of opera
Oh yeah.
as a young fellow. My father loved opera, and he would often take me to the opera. But I don't think it was that inspired me on that kind of actor front. I think it's just I mean, of course, as a young bloke, I loved movies, and it was part of the reason I became a cinematographer. But you know, as a young guy, I mean, I never really thought that much about performance. You know, obviously it affected me, and it affected me on a subconscious level. And it was also obviously the pictures that inspired me. But I think it was becoming a cinematographer and having that experience. I remember on one of my early films, I was working with the New Zealand actor Sam Neill, and I was watching Sam pretty much play to two cameras, and the things that he was doing, working both those cameras. Well, I was just like, oh my God, I was just blown away. And it was like an epiphany for me of a great actor who knew their craft, knew where the cameras were, knew where their key light was. And I just watched it, and it was like this magical dance, and incredible. And to that end, you know, I try on Percy Jackson, we've got a lot of young actors, and it's one of the things that I work with them a lot on them becoming aware of where the camera is and where the light is, and they love doing that. That's for them. It's kind of like, oh my God, I'm performing with this actor, but it's about the camera as well, and it's about the light. And so that's one of the things I love about working on Percy Jackson, is working with these young actors on that thing. But I don't know. I think to get back to your original question, I think I just discovered that as a cinematographer, and as time went on, working with more accomplished actors and more experienced actors, it became like a drug for me. I just love it. I love seeing those performances through the camera.
you guys obviously couldn't shoot in Afghanistan. So how did you guys go about faking Afghanistan and making it feel so authentic?
Well, that's an interesting story. If we go back to 2020, we were shooting in Los Angeles on season 1, and it was we were doing all the stateside scenes of Chase, first on the run, and he's going across America, and so all those scenes that we shot, kind of like December through to like February, the end of February in 2020. Now on March the 15th, we were due to fly to Morocco to do all the flashback scenes were set in Afghanistan, and some of the modern day scenes that were set in Morocco. And of course, on Friday, the 13th of March, along with a lot of shows around the world, we were shut down because of the COVID pandemic. And so then we were all on hiatus then for some months. And over the ensuing months, the producers were kind of like, well, Morocco, even though a lot of the stuff had been paid for in Morocco, we had hired through. I mean, we were ready to go.
Yeah.
But that kind of went on the back burner, and they thought, there was a lot of unknowns then, how safe it was to go to certain places. And they, in the end, they thought, they looked at Australia, and they looked at a few other locations, desert locations. But in the end, they went, we've really got to try and do this in America, and the best place to do it is the southwestern deserts. I dare say you call that California. And then they started looking up at Santa Clarita, which is north of Los Angeles, and particularly a ranch they call Blue Sky Film Ranch, I think it is, which is a kind of a ranch that they've been making movies on and TV series on for 50 years. And so they went, right, this could work for Afghanistan. And in the end, we're going to pull in on this, and we're going to do it. And so we built our Afghan village in the hills of Blue Sky Ranch. And then so the big thing then was, okay, the mountain range, the Hindu Kush mountain range in Afghanistan is very distinct. It's a young mountain range. It's very craggy.
Yeah.
And our VFX super said, listen, I've been casing out the Sierra Nevada outside of in California, outside of Lone Pine, and I think that could double for the Hindu Kush. And we looked at some reference shots and was like, wow, this actually looks pretty good. And so that's where it came to be. So Santa Clarita is where we shot Afghanistan. And our VFX guys shot plates of the Sierra Nevada and comped those plates in. And it's not, I've been to northern Pakistan and I've been to the Khyber Pass. I haven't been into Afghanistan, but that mountain range, the Karakoram, is pretty much the same as the Hindu Kush. I was blown away by the end results, what Eric Henry pulled off, and super impressive. It's very realistic.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now. Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
So the other thing I'd like to know, because you took on more in the second season, and I'm wondering, how did things change from season 1 to season 2?
Well, season 1 was really interesting. I mean, I was originally going to shoot 4 episodes, but because of the pandemic and the break we had, and then we came back and started shooting, and then Jeff became ill. Jeff Bridges became ill, and then we went on hiatus again, and the show came back a year later to complete the last I think it was the last 3 eps. And by that stage, I was on another project. So Sean Porter, who I started the project with, cinematographer, he completed those final eps. But even though I'm credited for only 2 of the eps, I actually shot quite a few scenes of the later episodes. So there's my work's kind of scattered amongst episodes 5 to 7. But that's just the way it turned out. It was, the schedule was kind of just thrown into disarray. Now for season 2, it was pretty much, it was a bit more straightforward. It was kind of like a traditional TV series where you just leapfrog ep to ep. So I did all the odd episodes, and Dan Stoloff came on board as a cinematographer, as a second cinematographer, and he did all the even episodes. And so we shot it more like a traditional TV series. We had, the scripts were coming in as we were shooting, and we were able to go from, you know, shooting the urban scenes that we do in Los Angeles, and then heading, you know, an hour north to do the Afghan scenes. So it was all pretty contained in and around the Los Angeles area.
I was reading an interview that you did, and you said, you know, you were talking about cinematography, and you said you had, the quote is, you said you had to be true to what you do, and I'm wondering if you could sort of elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important aspects about the visuals on The Old Man is that it had to be grounded. It didn't, you know, it's really important to John Steinberg and Dan Schatz that the show felt real. You know, I mean, we create, I call it kind of cinematic realism. It's not documentary, and it's not Hollywood kind of movie making. It's something in between. So it's stylized, but the stylization should never feel overt. You know, I guess the simplest way to put it is that the audience, you know, has to feel as though they're watching something that is as real as possible. So, and that's while keeping the show kind of stylish and you know, somewhat slick, but not over slick. So it's finding that balance. And occasionally, you know, we would have discussions about, you know, I'm thinking about treating it this way. We got kind of going a little bit too far with that stylization, or with that grade. We need to pull that grade, you know, back a little bit. Let's keep it grounded. And it was a constant kind of refrain for us that we shouldn't step outside of that kind of grounded and realistic nature of the show. So
it's interesting that you say that, because I was thinking about just like the opening shots in like season 1 and season 2, but like the season 2, like I think it starts with Lithgow, and there's like just a shaft of light, and
that's
everything
right.
else is like,
yeah.
And then yet what's interesting is you do this thing where it's like we don't see anyone else or anything else initially, and then when we get the over the shoulder of Lithgow onto the other actor, it's, you can see him, but he's like soft and sort of in the background. And what I find interesting is a lot of shows nowadays, I find when they work in dark scenes, it just disappears. Like you can't make stuff out. Whereas this, even though it looked and felt dark, I could still make things out, and it felt like a natural sort of environment. So like, I guess my question for you is like, how do you tackle dark scenes like that to make it feel so realistic, and yet still be, you know, making sure we can see things?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Just a little anecdote going back to, I think it was 2017 when we were shooting C, and this is with my showrunners, John Steinberg and Dan Schatz, and we had half. It was, I think it was episode 6, and the Mamoa storyline took place inside a cave, and I call him. You know, sometimes our cinematographers are called Princes of Darkness, but I call John the Prince of Darkness because sometimes he likes it really dark. And he pitched this idea to me. He goes, you know, our characters are blind, and but the two of them, the two children, are the only two people can see, and that they go down into this cave, and I want it to be pitch black. And I said, oh yeah, okay. So movie pitch black. And he said, no, pitch black. And I'm like, but John, like, 20 minutes of this episode is set in this cave. We need to be able to see something. And so we had this really interesting conversation about darkness and how dark can we go. And just at that time, the final big battle of the last season of Game of Thrones had come out, and there were all these complaints about how dark it was. Nobody could see anything, and so it's something that I'm always mindful of, is that at times you want to go dark, but you've got to be really careful about how dark you go, because the audience, on their variety of laptops, TVs, telephones, whatever it is that they're viewing this stuff on, you've got to be able to see what's going on if you want the audience to see what's going on. So you've got to be, for me as a cinematographer, it's that fine balance of making it dark, but not too dark that it goes muddy and disappears. So I always feel as though, if you have something on or near exposure in the frame, and it could be just a light globe in the distance, or it's a little splash of light, in the cave scene in episode 1 and the end of 1 and 3, like a little bit of splash of light coming through the cave on a rock in the background. If the eye can grab onto something that's on or near exposure, and the rest can fall off into darkness, then the image won't fall apart. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've got to be really careful about the important things in the frame, and that comes from lighting on set on the day, but also in the color grade afterwards. That it's like, okay, we want to go dark, but let's just keep that part of the frame, because it's really important. Let's lock onto that. Or okay, that the actor now, we want that to go into complete darkness, but let's, the wall of the apartment in the background, let's make sure there's enough light on that so the whole thing doesn't fall apart. So it's a bit of a dance, but it's important for me that, I've seen enough shows on TV myself to go, oh, actually, no, that's too dark there. We need to hold on to something. So yeah, that's something that I'm pretty mindful of.
Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Okay, so there's a show that I always come back to, and it's invariably not when I'm shooting. My partner doesn't like watching it. She's always like, hey, you can watch that by yourself. And so I have this this terrible habit, and this comes from years of filmmaking and being in foreign countries and sleeping in hotel rooms and doing night shoots. And so my sleep patterns over the years have become pretty bad, and I tend to wake up really early in the morning. If I can get through to 4:30 in the morning, that's a sleep in. So sometimes if I wake up at really early, at 3:30 in the morning, and that's it, wide awake, I go back to this show called For All Mankind, and it's not it's not because it puts me to sleep. It actually keeps me away. I'm a bit of a space nut, bit of a Gemini, Apollo, Mercury, American space program obsessive, and so this is like an alternate history. The Apollo program and the space program in America, and I really enjoy it. And that's a show that when I can't sleep or when I wake up too early, that's what I go back to. I love it.
Are you following the Artemis?
I am.
Yeah,
I'm following Artemis. So I'm looking forward to the SLS rocket taking off and returning a man and a woman to the moon. So that's the Artemis program is amazing, and that rocket that they've developed is just incredible. So
yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, looking forward to human beings returning to the moon. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Good, it was a great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, of course on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Raquel. Thanks for watching.